Is the transcendent franchise-changing talent coming to DC in next year's draft, the 2026 draft? Meet the stars of the tomorrow, next on Locked On Wizards.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Wizards, where myself and Abdullah Ayubi analyze the prospects that headline the loaded 2026 NBA draft class. We've told you all about the prospects who could be picked number 6, and maybe the Wizards trade up, trade down, find themselves guys in 25. But is 26 the year for the Wizards to find their guy? And what I mean by their guy, I mean the superstar, the face of the franchise. I'm Leif, Thulin, a credentialed NBA draft analyst, attendee of the past 2 NBA combines, and a host of Locked On NBA Big Board. And beside me is Abdullah Ayubi, diehard Wizards fan, and he's here to provide hometown insights, passion for his beloved Wizards, and insight and analysis on guys that could be the face of his beloved franchise, the Washington Wizards. Thanks for making Locked On Wizards your first listen each and every day. And remember, Locked On Wizards is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube at Locked On Wizards, where the best way to help us grow is to comment anything below. And today's question is, which prospect is your favorite from the 2026 NBA draft class? We're going to talk about BYU forward AJ Dybantsa, Kansas guard Darryn Peterson, Duke forward Cam Boozer, and Tennessee's Nate Ament. So let's dive right in. Abdullah, AJ's been the guy who's gotten the most acclaim. People have seen the most of his highlights. Is he the guy for you? And if not, who is it? But tell me your read on AJ Dybantsa, who's been the guy that, everyone said it's capture the flag. I don't know what the acronym is going to be next year for AJ, but is he the guy for you?
Yeah, AJ Dybantsa, 6'9", small forward, power forward, can basically play 1 through 5, can move like a guard, can dribble. Utah prep and now committed to BYU. It's going to be really interesting to see if he can transcend that program at BYU. Again, a guy like him who was getting offers from Kentucky, Duke, all of these elite programs, and choosing BYU is just something that you're going to have to definitely look into and to see how much of an impact he has on that program. I think there are some things that you might have to look at sometimes, and this is very nitpicky because, again, you want to look at everything, but on the court, there are times we can be a little dramatic. He can be that type of, where's the foul at? Or he can be a little hard-headed. But, again, he's a young guy. He's going into college basketball. Maybe he can that's a learning curve for any young guy. We're not talking about AJ Dybantsa. Probably a lot of young guys deal with that situation. But when there's so much spotlight on you, there's going to be a lot of criticism on you. That's one thing you have to harp on. And I think another thing for the Wizards is that this is a lot of talent. You mentioned all those guys, but will the Wizards be in the position to even get a top 5 pick? I think we have the prediction of the Wizards winning potentially 25 to 30 games, so that could alter that situation. But whatever, if they get that top 5 pick, if they follow the top 5, just know that this 2026 draft class is loaded with a capital L.
Well, you said it right there, loaded with a capital L. And this year's class is considered very good, meaning the 2025 one, and especially when you compare it to 24, which was devoid of top-end talent. But I think all draft evaluators, if you were to be asked on the teams, they'd say, yeah, 2026 is the one where we want to make sure that we have our pick. We don't want to have a protected pick go missing and you miss out on getting one of these type of guys who can be transcendent talents. It's guys like AJ, Darryn Peterson, Cam Boozer that you spend years tanking for the chance to get. So the Wizards, maybe they get lucky and they're above 25 wins, but yet they get lucky in the lottery, unlike this season, and you move up 4 or 5 spots as opposed to falling.
In prior seasons, there was no luck either.
Well, you got to give yourselves opportunities. I've said that numerous times. You got to give yourselves opportunities, and when you provide opportunity, the chance happens. But I sympathize. I understand that. So the question I've got for you is, it was commonly thought that AJ Dybantsa was the best prospect in America, regardless of age, coming up. Because Cooper Flagg, everyone's saying, capture the flag, how incredible is he? And then he had a year that was better than anyone could have imagined. Like, I'm a college basketball guru. I look at all this stuff incessantly. I watch tons of game, watch the film, talk about the NBA draft. And I was high on Cooper Flagg coming in. I watched him for a couple of weeks as a 17-year-old, became higher. And then from 17 to 18, when he turned 18 mid-season in December, he took another leap forward and he became the guy. And I think he's a better prospect than AJ. But to put this in reference, there was an anonymous poll surveying a bunch of executives at the college and NBA level, and AJ Dybantsa was considered the best prospect in youth basketball, ahead of a guy in Cooper Flagg that has everyone salivating, changing the course of their team's direction and trajectory to get him. So how much optimism does that provide you for if the Wizards were to get a guy like AJ Dybantsa?
Yeah, that's insane to think about that Cooper Flag was supposed to be in this draft class. I mean, that just again adds more talent to this loaded draft class already. But the fact that there were scouts saying that AJ Dybantsa could be giving him that edge over Cooper Flag. I mean, to me, that's insane. We all know how talented Cooper Flag is. I mean, he balled out this year as a 17, 18-year-old, and now AJ Dybantsa gained that much credit. Again, is the hype too much? Who knows? We'll see down the line. Again, one thing that I'm still a little questionable on is the whole attitude, the character. I mean, again, you're going to play in the bright lights of DC or whatever city you're in, and it's going to be in a losing situation. You're going to go into a team was losing a lot the season before you, because again, there's a reason why they got that draft pick. So at the end of the day, if you're a team and you're looking at AJ Dybantsa with his size, his skill set, the ability to shoot from all three, score from all three levels, can defend, it's really, really special. And it just you gotta hope that you fall in that top 3, top 5 luck when it comes to the lottery. And if the Wizards, whatever pick they get, I just know, again, going back to the whole 24 draft class, a weak draft class, you hit on all 3 draft picks in Bob Carrington, Keyshawn George, and Alex Sarr. So, but by the time of 2026, I think Michael Winger, Will Dawkins, they'll definitely figure out a way to land their guy, even if it's none of these guys that we're talking about today.
Yeah, and there's plenty of depth. We're talking about the guys that we think teams are going to salivate over and get the guys. So you mentioned the tendency to be a little dramatic, a bit of a prima donna. What makes AJ Dybantsa so talented that it doesn't matter that he's a little dramatic? Like you may want to cut that out, but you're not going to not draft him because of that. He's got such game-changing talent. He's drawn comparisons to Tracy McGrady, more modern Paul George. Like, what does he do that makes you say, "Oh, so be it"? There's this complaining. There's, "Hey, I'm the number 1 prospect in the country," but you'd still take him in a heartbeat. Why is he so good to you, Abdullah?
Because just his size, God-given ability at 6'8", 6'9", can dribble like a guard, very, very explosive, can shoot from 3, and he's only going to get better at it. And again, he's just a guy who's willing to learn. I think he's gotten better throughout his college career. I think I started hearing his name more as a sophomore in high school, but then he just kept on getting better. And again, he went up against guys like Nate Ament, like Darryn Peterson in high school. So again, when it comes to playing against the competition, he's always coming up and he's shining the brightest. And I think that's what really truly matters, especially in the NBA when you're playing against the best of the best. You want to see your young guys go out there and ball out. I think a guy like AJ Dybantsa, no matter what situation he's put in, I think will definitely find a way to shine.
AJ to me will be the most interesting one to watch in college basketball because he's inheriting a roster that's not just, hey, it's AJ and the rest of these guys. Like Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper were the only 2 players that were competent on Rutgers. This year, he's joining a team that just made the Sweet 16. Their best player, Richie Saunders, came back. It was first team All Big 12, likely a probable All-American, I'd have to guess. And they brought in Rob Wright for over $3 million from Baylor, who was a teammate with Cooper Flag and that fabulous starting 5 at Montverde. I'm very curious to see what the role is for AJ. Is he going to have the ball in his hands all the time at BYU, or is he going to fit in? And which one would benefit him more? AJ is the one that I'm most curious to watch, and I'm going to have a front row seat. I'm going to get credentials to BYU, living in Utah. I think it'll be very interesting to watch him duel Darryn Peterson. We're going to talk about him in a little bit. So one last question about AJ. You talk about just the God-given ability that he is big, he is long, he's got a handle, his heavy pull-ups, super great. My initial comparison I came up for when I first saw him a couple years ago was Andrew Wiggins with a better jump shot. And Andrew Wiggins, for those of you who remember, had like one of the coldest mixtapes of all time. And everyone thought he was going to be amazing. He was the number 1 pick. He's been an all-star. He's been a good player. Does that inspire a lot of faith to you, saying the Wizards get number 1? Are you going up to the clock and saying, I want AJ Dybantsa?
Yeah, no, I think obviously Andrew Wiggins, there was a lot of hype going him coming out of college, but the way he transitioned, he's still a really good NBA player. I mean, he won a championship. But if you're the Wizards, if you get a guy like AJ Dybantsa, definitely transcends this young core that you have already with Bilal Coulibaly, Alex Sarr, Bub Carrington, Keyshawn George. You got young guys in Justin Champagny, Tristan Vucevic. It just adds more to this young core, the youth movement that we have here in DC. And on top of that, you're going to have the guys that you took the year before upcoming in a couple weeks with pick 6, pick 18. And who knows? Will JP13? We made a video about him being potentially traded. Will he be on the roster? We don't know. But a guy like AJ Dybantsa could definitely be that superstar the Wizards have been wanting for so long here in DC.
AJ is certainly the guy that I would say can be an offensive number one. We talked about how Sarr might be an offensive number two and a defensive number one, and that's a really good basketball player, but you need someone to be the standard bearer on offense, this torch carrier going forward, scoring the basketball. AJ can body that and then some. He can be a 25 to 30 point per game scorer in the NBA, and that's the appeal. Coming up next, we're going to talk about a guy who, according to some ranking services, has usurped AJ as the number one player in high school heading into college. That's Darryn Peterson. He's heading to Kansas, and they'll play against each other in college, and I can't wait for that matchup. But we're going to talk about that and potential Wizards guard Darryn Peterson coming your way next on Locked On Wizards. The days are getting longer, the weather is warming up, and people are spending more time outside, which means it's the perfect time to refresh your outdoor space. Whether you're working with a big backyard or a small balcony, Wayfair has everything you need to make it feel more like you. Wayfair's massive selection of outdoor essentials makes it easy to transform any space into your ideal summer setup, from comfy conversation sets to sleek dining tables and outdoor decor. They've got it all at prices that fit your budget. I really enjoy the mix of styles they offer because it's affordable and it looks elegant. Wayfair makes it super easy to find the pieces that match your vibe without spending a fortune. The delivery is free and, better yet, hassle-free, and that's even for the big stuff. You get a big couch, doesn't matter. It's free and hassle-free. Whether you're entertaining guests or just relaxing solo, shop Wayfair to help you unwind. Shop a huge selection of outdoor furniture online this summer. Get outside with Wayfair. So head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair. Every style, every home. Welcome back to Locked On Wizards. Leif, Thulin, and Abdullah Ayubi talking to you about the 2026 NBA draft. So 2025 draft has not happened yet. Who knows where the Wizards will be drafting? But I'm going to ask you a question. The Wizards get the number one pick in 2026, and they're going to the podium. Are you tempted to take a guy named Darryn Peterson, a guard who has been compared to the likes of a bigger Damian Lillard? I've even heard him compared to Kobe Bryant. Or are you taking a guy in AJ Dybantsa, who many have compared to Tracy McGrady, Paul George, and many others that fit the modern archetype of right now big wings dominating? Who's taken the number one pick according to General Manager Abdullah Ayubi?
Yeah, so I think with Darryn Peterson, a guy who's going into Kansas, I mean, 6'5", like you mentioned, his size, his rare trait of passing and playmaking is just amazing. He's been a point guard that's been off the charts these past couple of years in high school. And as much as it's hard to compare the two because, again, two different players, two different guys that are both talented. But I go back to the fit. I think in DC, you need a wing. And I think that's why you kind of favor more of AJ Dybantsa more than a guy in Darryn Peterson. Darryn Peterson, very, very talented. And again, loaded draft class. It's probably going to be a lot of, depends on who get the number one pick, but it's going to be a lot of, AJ versus Darryn. Obviously, if Cooper Flag was in this draft class, it would be, again, those three-headed monsters. So a guy like Darryn Peterson, very, very talented. But again, since you already have a guy above Carrington that we are kind of really high on, you were especially high on going into a 2024 draft class, I just think it would make sense to go and lean towards Dybantsa.
I don't personally think it matters too much on what's on the roster, because if you're drafting number one, you might as well take the guy you think's the best regardless of roster. I do agree in terms of fit. AJ's the one that I think is you can pencil in and say, oh, that's a great fit. But I think the best player available, however you evaluate, and you may well be right. It may be AJ anyway. And I do think his max outcome is probably higher. So let's talk about Darryn Peterson, though, and what he does well. To me, it's just how calm, cool, and collected he is, in the sense that nothing phases him. He's able to score being at his own pace. He's able to blow by bigger guys when a smaller guy's on him. He's able to use his size, elevate over the top. He plays at his own pace, goes off of screens, shoots threes beautifully, which is where I think he's likened to Damian Lillard appropriately, which is obviously high praise. I've even heard him compared to Kobe because he's got this high release and almost effortless pull-up mid-range game. And you just don't see too many scorers wired like him to score the basketball. He and AJ played each other, and Darryn Peterson's team won narrowly over Utah Prep, which features a couple other collegiate players. And Darryn Peterson plays for Prolific Prep in Napa, California, and they feature college players as well. But it was really AJ versus versus Darryn. Darryn Peterson won that battle. For some reason, that matters to me. And also, he scored 57 points in that game, and that really matters to me. I just buy his scoring. It wasn't like AJ had a bad game. I think he had 49, just a paltry 49. But Darryn Peterson, when it mattered most, hit game winners in Geico Nationals. He scored 57 in a head-to-head against and AJ. He's my number one right now, but I'm very, very tentatively saying that just because I do think it matters on the upside and how likely you are to be a super duper star and a guy who's a first team all NBA guy routinely. And maybe AJ has an edge there, but just watching them play right now and what the role I envision for Kansas, I lean Darryn Peterson ever so slightly.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think this year in college basketball, it's going to be exciting. Yeah, AJ Dybantsa at BYU, Darryn Peterson at Kansas. It goes back to what I always talk about when it comes to watching college basketball players, March Madness. I mean, can they get their team to the tournament, and how well do you do in the tournament? How well do you do under the bright lights? You talked about how when Dybantsa and Peterson matched up, Peterson with 57. That's insane. But let's see you do it in the collegiate level. Then eventually you're going to have to do in the NBA. But yeah, that conversation of who's going to go at one between Dybantsa and Peterson is going to be something that we're going to be talking about for the next couple of months going into the 2026 draft class.
Yeah, it's going to be a big time conversation. And I don't even think it's a 2-horse race. I think there's a world where Cam Boozer is the best collegiate player of them all. And then the question is, well, does it matter more that he's better collegiately, or do you want a guy who you think might have more NBA potential because he's a better athlete? Speaking of AJ Dybantsa, and that's going to be very interesting. Do you favor a guy in Cam Boozer who I think might be the most productive and he's in the most conducive for success situation? So one more thought on AJ or Darryn Peterson. The Wizards had John Wall, they had Bradley Beal, and both those guys were awesome. They were both all-stars. Bradley Beal, a 3-time all-star. John Wall, an even better player, unfortunately flamed out with injuries at some point. Is there a world where you believe that this guy can be the best Wizards guard, maybe even more than Agent Zero Gilbert Arenas?
Oh man, I mean, I think a little too soon, Leif. I got to see him play college basketball, but I definitely think the potential is kind of through the roof with how he performed in high school. Is one of the best guards as of recently in a long time. So I think it's a little too soon to compare him to Agent Zero and John Wall. I have love for John Wall. John Wall is the reason why I started watching basketball. Big reason why I'm a Wizards fan. Oh, sorry, Wizards fan. So I don't know. It might be a little too soon, but the fact that again we're having that discussion now just goes to show how much potential this kid has.
And here's the crazy thing. I'm usually a believer in cautious optimism in the sense that I want to see the best, but I'm not going to scream from the rooftops about this guy's an all-star. I'll say this. I think that the three of these guys, AJ, Darryn, and Cam, I think you're getting 3 all-stars and potentially 2 all-NBA guys. Like I'm that certain of their NBA translation. And I very, very rarely watch this much high school film, much less praise high school film and say, yeah, this is the real deal. They're going to turn out fine. They're going to be more than just fine. They're going to be fantastic in the NBA. And I can see Darryn Peterson, if he were to land with the Wizards, usurping that top spot from Agent Zero or John Wall. And here's the question: Would you say the better Wizard was Agent Zero or John Wall?
Oh man, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. You throw it at me, Leif. I just think because both their tenures kind of ended in very awkward situations. John Wall died with injury, and like Agent Zero with what happened in the locker room and that situation. For me, since I grew up with John Wall, I was a little too young for the Agent Zero, the Gilbert Arenas days. I just had the fact that John Wall had the city on his shoulders. I think that was so like amazing. I mean, he had a community behind him, the 360 layups, his ability to pass the ball. The fact that he was doing all of that went with a limited jump shot that wasn't consistent. Everyone was saying that at the time, if he had that jump shot, he was up to it, the likes of Kyrie Irving, Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, Chris Paul. So I got to go with John Wall. I just think he had the city on his back, and that shot in Game 6 against the Celtics was just amazing. I mean, I remember I was in, I think, 8th grade at the time, and I was screaming on the top of my lungs, and he was making guys like Marcin Gortat have good caliber careers at center. If he had the athletic center, we would be having a different story. But then injuries happened, front office came in the way, and it just sucked the way it ended. But it is what it is. I think John Wall will forever be a legend here in Washington.
Well, hopefully a guy from the 2025 and the 2026 draft will become Washington Wizards legends and maybe Yeah, you won't be complaining if one of these guys usurps that top guard spot from the beloved John Wall. I'm a Gilbert Arenas believer. I think he was fantastic, and he talks his big game and he says, "Oh, I'm fantastic," but he might have been even better than he says, and that's how crazy his game was. So another guy who's going to be following his father's footsteps. There's Cam Boozer following after Carlos Boozer. Can he be better than his dad? Can Alijah Arenas be better than Gilbert Arenas? We're going to talk about that and one other prospect coming up next on Locked On Wizards. Welcome back to Locked On Wizards. Leif, Thulin, and Abdullah Ayubi guiding you through the crash course of who are going to be the stars in the draft. Not a month from right now, but about 13 months from right now. And right now we've talked about AJ Dybantsa, Darryn Peterson, and now we're going to Cam Boozer. Cam Boozer, I made reference. I think he might be the most polished of these guys, that have the least transition in a bad way to college basketball. I think he's going to be right at home. I think he's going to follow the footsteps of Paolo Banchero and be a first-team All-American at Duke. And he's going to score, be the ACC Player of the Year, bully players, have more skill than is recognized, use strength and coordination to create shots for himself and other players. I think he's going to be one of the front runners, maybe the top 3 front runner for National Player of the Year. And it's very rare to see freshmen be so dominant. We saw Cooper Flagg be just the 4th to win the National Player of the Year, joining the likes of Zion, KD, and was it Michael Beasley? Oh no, Anthony Davis.
Yeah,
Anthony Davis. So there's just 4 of those guys, and I think that Cam Boozer's got a good chance. I think he's got the best chance of these guys. What's your read on Cam Boozer, having seen him dominate at the high school level in Florida?
Yeah, no, I think, his resume speaks for itself. It is kind of wild at his age, between the Florida State Championships, consecutive FIBA MVPs, and Peach Jam Championship. Offense runs through Boozer in every setting. He can operate from the post and create high percentage shots with his strength and footwork. He's got quick spin moves and both finesse and power finishes. He can definitely be a beast on the glass. Offensively, the Wizards and defensively, rebounding has been bottom 5 for as long as I've been a fan. So a guy who can play make, pass the ball as well, and push the ball in tempo. He can really do it all. And again, we're talking about the third guy. You also have him. It's just amazing how much talent this draft class has. And it's gonna be really gonna be interesting to see years to come and how this draft class is compared to the last 5 years, because again, this could go down as one of the most talented draft classes that we've had in so long here in the NBA.
You look at 2003, and that's obviously the standard. That's LeBron James, and of course, one miss in Darko Milicic. You go to Carmelo, then you get to Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade. You're not going to get too much better than that, but this is about as close as you're going to get. AJ, Darryn Peterson, Cam Boozer, Nate Ament. Question for you. What do you think, and you can touch on this for Darryn Peterson too, because I didn't ask about this, but we talked about it with AJ. What do you think a reasonable outcome is for someone in the early years of their career? In the world of, like, okay, the Wizards draft Cam Boozer. What is year 4? What does his ceiling look like even year 8? Is he an all-NBA talent? Is he someone that you feel can be one of the all-time greats for Washington?
Yeah, I think definitely within year 3, year 4, you could see that jump of being that all-star, all-NBA player. I think, again, the fact that he's doing all that, I just spoke about his resume, doing all that at such a young age. And again, he's doing that with the likes of these guys that we're mentioning in his draft class. It just goes to show. And then he's playing in an elite program at Duke, when you take on the challenge, playing in such an elite program again, it's going to put you against the best. It just goes to show that he's willing to take on the next step and go to the NBA and be that top caliber player no matter where he goes. And if he's in Washington, I definitely think it's a good situation, because again, we needed a guy who can be a menace off the glass. We want someone to be nasty in the paint, and you have Alex Sarr right now, so Boozer Sarr front court would be nasty.
I think they complement each other brilliantly. Like, that would be fantastic. I think that he and Darryn Peterson are just as likely to be all-stars. I think AJ's maybe got the highest peak outcome of being an all-NBA guy that has the ball in his hands at the end of the game, and you say, okay, go win us the game, because we need a guy who can guard tons of positions, can score the ball with the ball in his hands, can shoot off the ball. But these guys are all fantastic. But that's not it in this draft class. There's a guy named Nate Ament, and you'd mentioned him a couple days ago. You mentioned him again when we were prepping for this show that you wanted to touch on Nate Ament. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you. Talk about your boy, Nate Ament.
Yeah, so it's interesting because Nate Ament is from my hometown in Manassas, Virginia, and played basketball with him a couple of times. And this was before he went into Highland, the program that he was in. He was in public school before that, but he really transitioned himself. 6'9", again, 3-level scorer. I think one thing that's a little people are concerned about him is his skinny frame. He did commit to Tennessee, which was kind of interesting because there was offers from Duke and Kentucky. So it's going to be a situation where how is he going to be the number one option right off the bat? His freshman year, is the pressure going to get to him? And he played in a really good program in Highland, and they were really good this year. And he put up a good show against AJ Dybantsa. So it goes back to these guys are playing high-level basketball against high-level players, and I love to see it. And I'm rooting for the guy. I think his frame is it may be a little concerning, but I definitely can pack on some muscle. I think in today's NBA, a guy like him, skinny frame, is not that much of a big deal, and I think he'll figure out a way to manage through it. And again, I think his ability is to shoot from three and wingspan. I mean, he can guard 1 through 4 and he can dribble the ball, bring it up the court. Again, can be a menace off the glass as well. So a guy like Nate Ament, so talented. And again, you're on top. This is the 4th, 5th guy that we're talking about. And he could potentially be that maybe number 2, number 3 overall pick. It's going to all come down to this first year of college basketball with all these young guys and see how they do. And it's going to be exciting, man. And the one thing that I always talk about is how they produce in March Madness. First of all, can you get to the tournament? But then when you get to the tournament, how far do you go? And how much of a contribution to your team's success in the tournament?
Well, all of these guys will be primed to go to the tournament. I mean, Duke just made the Final Four. Tennessee made the Elite Eight. Kansas had a down season, but that's Kansas. That's one of the winningest programs in basketball history. And Tennessee is an interesting choice for Nate Ament because they're known for defense. They're known for toughness. So if there's any team that can strengthen him, pack on some pounds, becoming a more versatile defender and add to his stock there, because he's got, like you said, a lengthy build, someone who can dribble the ball, has a very good shooter for his size, and he's a late bloomer. Sometimes that's really helpful because Darryn Peterson, AJ Dybantsa, and especially Cam Boozer, like you mentioned, his accolades in the FIBA ranks, these guys have been known commodities forever, and their games maybe were more polished sooner. Maybe Nate Ament's got more growth curve, and there's more to unpack, and there's more potential that has yet to be seen. Speaking of such, there's a big-time name, and he's been in the headlines recently for an unfortunate reason because of a car crash. That's Alijah Arenas, son of Agent Zero, Gilbert Arenas. For those who don't know, he got in a car crash, and he was hospitalized due to smoke inhalation. No bodily injuries, no harm to his bones or anything like that. But this is a guy that's very conflicting. Some people say, oh, he's slender and he's not very quick twitch, and I don't see it, and others are all in. You mentioned that you wanted to talk about him. What's your read on Alijah Arenas, and what's your read on his potential?
Yeah, so definitely is an unfortunate situation, but I think one thing that I want to see is he goes through something like that going into his freshman year. How well does he perform? I think that's going to be an indicator of how much of a player, how much of a man Alijah Arenas is. I think, being the son of Gilbert Arenas, especially since, he played in Washington, it's going to be some headlines about him. It's going to be a lot of more, be on a microscopic level of how much criticism he can get. But a guy like him, I think offensively is really, really gifted. At his size, talk about skinny frame. I mean, I brought that up with Nate Ament, but again, I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think he could figure out a way to manage through it and put on some muscle. But I think offensively, 3-level score, I think he'll be just fine. And a guy who's, again, in this talented draft class, who's going to be not talked about a lot because of the guys that we mentioned before him. So if you're the Wizards, maybe that's something you can bring in, and you bring in a guy who played. His father played for this franchise. Again, definitely bring a lot of media, a lot of attention to this team. So that's something a positive, get more attention, bring the spotlight back to DC. The Wizards for so long, as of recently, have been dealing with the lack of media attention, and bringing a guy that's the son of a guy like Gilbert Arenas is huge. And who knows? We'll just have to see how he performs this upcoming season. And you're dealing with a life-changing incident, a potentially life-changing incident. If he can go out there and ball out and bounce back and say, hey, the car crash didn't affect me. I'm still out there. I'm still going out. I'm still balling. I'm going to make the March Madness tournament. I'm going to ball out. And I'm going to be the reason why I'm not just the son of Gilbert Arenas. I'm a big reason I'm just on my own.
And he took an unconventional route. All these guys played on super teams. They played on loaded AAU teams. He played at a public high school, no prep school, no nothing. Played at a public high school and was that dude on his team. Scored the rock at an elite level. And many of you guys are thinking, oh, well, maybe we want someone bigger because Darryn Peterson's the only guard on this list, and he's 6'5", 6'6". and Gilbert wasn't that big. Elijah's a lot bigger. He's about 6'6", 6'7", very slender build, but he's not a diminutive guard by any stretch of the imagination. So, Abdullah, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I didn't prepare you for this. This is your authentic reaction. You rank these guys 1 through 5 in your wish list for the Washington Wizards.
Oh, man, really put me on the spot.
That's what I got to do, man. I got to put you on the spot and give the Wizards fans what they need.
No, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. Just because, again, I think he's so talented, wing, and the fact that he was it was in debate with him and Cooper Flag. I got to put Dybantsa at 1. And this is for the Wizards, correct? It's not just like okay. So I put
either or, but I'm saying the Wizards just because I think you have a specific vision for this team, and I know you plan to elaborate upon that as we continue going. So tell us for the Wizards specifically.
Yeah, Dybantsa. I think when it comes, I love Darryn Peterson. I think he's going to do great in Kansas, but I think the guard situation is, I think, settled. I really think we have a shot at Trey Johnson. You already have Bub Carrington. So again, and maybe JP13 is out the window. So I think I put Cam Boozer over Darryn Peterson, just because, again, Cam Boozer, a guy who can, a 6'9", can move the ball, be a menace off the glass. It's just he checks more boxes. But don't get me wrong, Darryn Peterson is a great player. So I put Boozer at 2, Darryn Peterson at 3, and I put Nate Ament at 4. I think he's a guy that can definitely surprise some people. And playing in a school like Tennessee, he's going to get more looks compared to playing in the bigger programs like Duke or Kentucky. And I'll put Arenas at 5, but I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple months of college basketball, Arenas is I can change him from 5 to 2 or 3 because, again, I think has potential to be a really good player. And again, you mentioned him playing in public school, being that guy. It's just something you have to mark, and just it goes down to March Madness. I want to see how these guys perform. But all in all, I think Dybantsa is going to be the best player out of this draft, but it's going to be really, really close when we go into the 2026 draft.
I'm very curious to see how conventional wisdom is approached regarding this. Is AJ going to be the year-round favorite to go number 1, or will Darryn Peterson or Cam Boozer have better college seasons and people say, oh, you know what, they're better at basketball and for the college, therefore he's better at the NBA, or does his weight of being the best guy for so long carry over enough? I like Darryn Peterson as my favorite. I think AJ's got the highest potential. I think Cam's the safest. I would go Darryn, AJ, Cam, Nate Ament, and then there's other guys as well. Like we talk about Elijah, so Elijah would be number 5 for me in this, but I wouldn't be surprised if 2 or 3 of these guys fall to the lower half of the top 10, and you're getting even more guys with all-star potential. So 2026 could be the year the Wizards find their torchbearer, the guiding light, the franchise, the face of the franchise, to replace that's been gone since John Wall. Like, Bradley Beal is an excellent player, but I don't think he had the city on its back like John Wall did. So is 2026 the year? You guys let us know in the comments below.
I don't know, Leif, if we have Phoenix's pick swap for this year, because I have to look at it, but that could be something that could be huge because, again, Phoenix is falling apart. So who knows? Maybe, I don't know if you're going to be better than Phoenix in 2026 because it's not too long, but who knows again? And I think it's also in 2027. So just something to keep in a factor because a lot of people aren't talking about those draft picks that they got from Phoenix and that Bradley Beal trade.
And if you have multiple picks, you can trade up, because you combine picks and find a way to say, we think these guys are going to be so good that we're going to combine assets and move up and get a guy that we believe in. And you've talked about the utmost faith you have in this front office. So let us know what you would do in 2026. And for your beloved Washington Wizards, who are you taking and why? Tell us who, why, and what your expectations are in the comments below. We're going to try to engage with you. And also reach out to us on Twitter and let us know if you want to hear about some other prospects in this year's draft, as well as the following drafts. So thank you guys for making Locked On Wizards your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every night until an NBA champion is crowned. The Thunder are only 1 game away from making the NBA Finals, and that's a youthful team that tanked for a while. So Wizards fans, rejoice. It's possible to make it to the promised land.
Walker was part of that team.
He sure was. That gives you some optimism as well. So to get the local analysis on a national scale, find NBA Game Night on Locked On NBA or on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. So thank you guys for listening. We appreciate the support and can't wait to talk to you guys tomorrow.